The McAlvany Weekly Commentary, covering monetary, economic, and geopolitical news events. Now, here are Kevin Orrick and David McAlvany.
I think those are in charge. The people who run Wall Street and the people who run Treasury and the Federal Reserve plus the international bankers know that the current system has ended. I think their main goal is to maintain some bit of confidence in the dollar, and everybody's helping to do that because everybody's holding these dollars, but everybody knows that we have to go to a new system.
Welcome to the McAlvany Weekly Commentary. I'm Kevin Orrick along with David McAlvany. And David, today we have, of course, with us Congressman Ron Paul, who's an 11-term congressman from Texas. And he's a leading advocate for freedom in our nation's capital. He's devoted his political career to the defense of individual liberty and sound money. Judge Andrew Napolitano calls him the Thomas Jefferson of our day. After serving as a flight surgeon in the U.S. Air Force in the 1960s, Dr. Paul moved to Texas to begin a civilian medical practice, delivering 4,000 babies in his career as an obstetrician. He served in Congress from 1976 to 1984, and then again from 1996 until the present. He and Carol Paul, his wife of 51 years, have 5 children, 18 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. Ron Paul, the New York Post once wrote, is a politician who cannot be bought by special interests. And there are a few people in public life who, through thick and thin, rain or shine, stick to their principles. And Ron Paul is one of those few.
We're covering a lot of information, and a lot of the information we cover each week with our listeners is pretty dire. And that's just kind of the state of the world as it is, not necessarily the way it always has been or always will be. But we'd love to explore some things with you today which give some direction to tomorrow. And I just wanted to start reading a quote from the end of your book. Ours is not a fated existence, for nowhere is our destiny etched in stone. In the final analysis, the last line of defense in support of freedom and the Constitution consists of the people themselves. If the people want to be free, if they want to lift themselves out from underneath the state apparatus that threatens their liberties, squanders their resources on needless wars, destroys the value of their dollar, and spews forth endless propaganda about how indispensable it is and how lost we would be without it, there is no force that can stop them. If freedom is what we want, it's ours for the taking. Let the revolution begin. What do you think we can anticipate in the first 120 days of the next administration? Could you see foreign exchange controls, an Argentine-style seizure of retirement accounts? Will this be a bold initiation into executive responsibilities, or do you anticipate Obama easing his way in on a more low-key basis?
No, I think he'll be pretty aggressive. I doubt if he's going to take over the investment retirement accounts, even though I guess in his own mind he wouldn't mind doing that, but I don't think the country will be quite ready for that. But I think he'll just do more bailouts. He'll do more of what Bush has been doing, and along with the Democrats in the Congress, and that means that it may be oriented more to bailing out the mortgage holder, the homeowner, and just passing out checks to the individuals rather than to the mortgage companies and to the banks and to the corporations. But I think they're going to spend a lot of money, a lot more money, and it'll be a big bailout package, and that'll come up. They'll even try to get that through even before the new session starts. But I think it's going to be a lot more of that. I think they probably are anxious to change some rules on labor law to make it a lot easier for the labor unions to get some clout. But I think the American people can expect bigger government, less freedom, more spending, more debt, more inflation, and no change in our foreign policy. In other words, we can expect that the Democrats will be very much like the Republicans and continue the process that we've been living with for these last 8 years, which have not been very helpful to us.
Well, President-elect Obama is filling out his cabinet and advisory positions right now, and Rahm Emanuel had just made a statement just recently saying, quote, "You don't ever want a crisis to go to waste." Do you think they're going to utilize this financial crisis to the best of their ability? What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think they will, just like the neocons got ecstatic over 9/11. Now's our chance. The very first thing they said, we've been waiting for the chance to invade Iraq. So they jumped at it, and they jumped at passing the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act was something that had been proposed before 9/11. And now there's a financial crisis. That's the way big government people operate. Yes, this is, for those who believe in bigger government, this provides an opportunity for them, and I think that's what you're going to see happen.
You note in your most recent book that our Constitution was written to restrain government, not the people. And then you observe that government is always tempted to turn that maxim upside down. It would seem that the next administration is likely to continue on a similar course as the present Republican administration, expanding the role of government for our own good. Perhaps the themes will be different. Instead of protecting us from others, you mentioned the Patriot Act, perhaps our new benevolent leadership will be protecting us, I don't know, from ourselves. How do you think this will be spun?
Well, there'll be more of it. Of course, we do a lot of that already. I mean, everything from seat belts to what we put in our mouths and into our lungs, that you can't do it without the government knowing exactly what we're doing. So a lot of that is going to continue, which means that even though when the Democrats took over the House of Representatives, I thought we'd have a better chance to maybe allow people to pick and choose nutritional alternatives and vitamins and all, but no, they were just as bad as the Republicans. So that's going to continue. People in Washington have very little confidence in freedom. They don't have confidence they give so little credibility to the average citizen that the citizen would not take care of themselves no matter what, economically or taking care of their own lives and their own safety. So they feel very benevolent that they're going to take care of everybody, and if they see an opportunity like what we have presently, they're going to take advantage of it. So I see very, very little chance that our government will shrink in size. The only positive thing we can say is more and more Americans are getting sick of it all. In spite of the election, I think there's a large number, but not a majority of Americans who are just tired of the whole thing, and they know that we can't continue in this process because we just can't afford it.
The question for you in that regard, it seems that younger people are aware of sort of a changing zeitgeist, the old world of the Republicans and Democrats and the somewhat farcical conflict between the two as we come into election periods. I think the vast majority of Americans, or certainly American youth, are asking themselves, is this for real? Can't we go back to something more basic? What we're really interested in is freedom or individual liberty. What did you see as you were on the campaign trail this last year?
I saw a tremendous response, and it was surprising but very pleasing to me that we got such favorable support on the campuses. And it didn't have to be the conservative campuses. As a matter of fact, we got as good a reception on the liberal campuses as ever. It was at the University of Michigan, of all places, that in the middle of my speech they started chanting, "End the Fed, end the Fed." They started burning Federal Reserve notes. I mean, and I never thought I'd see that day where college kids all of a sudden got interested in the Federal Reserve System. But I think the young people know that they're not going to get anything out of Social Security. A lot of these promises are coming to an end, and if you talk about responsibility and freedom of choice in their personal lives as well as their economic lives, and getting out of the system and not paying into Social Security and advocating getting rid of the income tax, they can get pretty excited about this. And we got tremendous support. So that is where I came away being more encouraged, not discouraged, and it was from the campuses. So I think the young people are listening to the message.
Well, you put a number on the elimination of the income tax. You put a number on it right there in your book, which I thought was fascinating. Many people say, oh my gosh, how in the world could they eliminate the income tax? How could we possibly have roads and bridges and a military? But you brought a great point out. It would reduce government spending by 40%, which would merely just take us back to 1997. Is that correct?
That's about right, and that a lot of us, I'm sure you as well, thought we were spending maybe too much in 1997. And yet if we had those same funds, we could have that much government without an income tax. And think of many years that we went before 1913 without an income tax, and our country grew. And we were prosperous, and we had sound money, and yet people believe that the world will come to an end if you don't have an income tax. And it is, of course, the worst of all taxes in my estimation.
The conversation that you are carrying on across campuses and across the country and in your role as a congressman really is not a partisan conversation. And I think that's what is encouraging to me particularly, is that it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you're part of the Green Party or any other independent party, libertarian or across the board, there's some things